Hey, everybody. Listen, y'all. I'm going to tell you something that's going to make you laugh first before I get to the heart of what I want to talk about today on Inspirational Journeys. And I'm going to say, I'm in a pickle. There's another thing I can say is talk about bubbles. And why do I say that? I'm not in a real big sour pickle. I don't even eat pickles. But I was getting a little frustrated because I didn't know what to talk about for the podcast for as you're hearing this today. And I was talking to some of my friends at our Writing Warriors for Jesus boot camp this morning. My friends Jen, Tish, and even Ruth Seibert. I will give everybody a shout out that I've been talking to this week, because I've got an interview coming up for next week, but I didn't have anything for this week. I had no clue. And before, when I was doing the podcast, before even last year, I had stuff planned out. I had 2 episodes a week scheduled. I had everything. Now I don't have anything scheduled. But you know what? That's okay. Because it was not for God did not tell me to schedule anything out specifically this year. And you know what? And you want to know why? Because this theme, one of the themes I have for this year, other than Kingdom Connections, is walking with God as a writer. When I say that, what I'm going to share with you is the reflections I've learned from the current editing project I'm working on, as well as my writing in itself. First of all, let me tell you that my plate has been full these last few weeks. Trying to get my book finished, Shadows on the Wall, first book of the Spirit Writer Society series that I'm working on. And the story has changed and evolved. And I've actually got some scenes for book 2. So I've been working on that. And now I have a new editing project for Celebrate Lit, and I'm thankful for that, because I need all the editing experience I can get before I start my editing business. Okay, so here's something I've learned, not only by doing the edits, but getting to a point where I'm like, okay, so how do I tell this author that, what's wrong with the chapter that she's working on, or whatever? How do I explain this? Because I can't talk about what the project is because it's not published yet, but I'm going to give general examples. I can say that an incident happened in an earlier chapter, and then the next 2 chapters are info dumps. Some of them are info. I mean, some of it's important, but there are some gaps there. And then the next chapter is a bunch of info dumps. How the main character is told how to do task A after her debacle the day before for the original task. Then she does task A. She goes to another office, does task B, is left in the office, and while the person she's working with, steps out. Her boss finds her there, tells her she's late leaving, sends her back to fix task A. She meets this character. She and there's not a lot going on until toward the end of that chapter. So it's like, how do I express this? What's not working here? What's wrong with this? And it also makes me think about my own writing. Am I doing the same thing as this other author? Even though I'm editing a different genre than what I'm writing, I still see it. I still see the flaws, and I'm wondering if people don't see the same thing with mine. So, and I was like, okay, how do I explain this to the author in a way that she can see? Okay, so I'm going to share my screen, okay, so that you can see something that gave me a nudge.
Select a window or an application that you want to share. Share sound checkbox not checked. Selection. Optimize for video. Optimize for share screen button.
Okay, so here we go.
Ultimate self-editing checklist format.
Now, here is the ultimate self-editing checklist. Yes, you hear my screen, my jaws talking, because I had to find it. So here, I'm not even showing you the whole document. I ran through this, okay? and I will make sure I get the links so that you can go download these for your own writing. It's more for self-editing, but here is a question that really nudged me.
B. Why is the scene necessary?
Why is this scene necessary?
C. What do you want to accomplish?
What do you want to accomplish?
D. When time/season/E. Where's the F? Whose point of view? G. Who else there? Y. H. How does the scene advance either?
Okay, I'm reading through. Okay, here's another question. How does the scene advance either the plot or character development? That was the nudge that really...
Screen sharing meeting controls. Your screen share has been
Okay, sorry, I had to stop my screen share for a second because I was just showing you that so that you could see what I was looking at. And that made me ask these questions to consider. Why is it so? And then explain, wait a minute, info dumps don't cut it. If you want to keep your story moving forward, info dumps aren't going to work. You're going to have to I want to see conflict. I want to see how this scene affected the character, how the incident from a couple of chapters back affected the character. What is her flaw? What is her fear? All of that stuff. And I'm like, okay, I am new at developmental editing. Line editing is my jam, but I am learning as I go. And I'm telling you this because I feel like as I learn these things, I can share what my reflections are. I can share what I've learned with you so that as writers, and even if you are a new editor, so as writers, or even as beta readers, you can see the flaws in your own story and you can help another writer understand how they can get themselves in a pickle. And then help them get out of that pickle or make the bubbles disappear. Okay? Make all those silly little bubbles disappear out of the story. So, and today, not today, yeah, in a recent 540 writers community write-in that a dear friend of mine, Amy Harden, has hosted, and I was talking to another dear friend. His name is Jay Calhoun. I'm going to give him a shout out because he told me something. And Greg Bridgman, when he did the self-editing workshop, and if you join the 540 writers community, and I will make sure that is in the show notes so that you can join that. If you join that and sign up for the newsletter, when Becky Antkowiak sends that newsletter, when she sends the videos out, when she gets them uploaded, then you can go back and rewatch that. I would encourage you to do it. He even gave this metaphor himself, but Jay said something that really got me thinking. And I even used the dining experience metaphor as I'm working through this to help the author understand. There are two metaphors I like to use when I'm talking about a book. And the first one used to be a road trip, okay? And I know people read shorter and shorter things, and that's where the dining experience comes in. But say you have a nice long fantasy that you like to read. Okay? Think of that fantasy as a road trip. The info dumps, the long descriptions. Is that a red light? Are you sitting in a traffic jam? Or is it a detour that's taking you off the beaten path and pulling you out of the story, getting you off the path where you're going, so it's harder to get to your destination? Are you trying to get to your destination on a as Jen Lowry's son Sam said, and Jen, I hope you don't mind me using this quote, but are you trying to get to your destination on a treadmill? That's kind of what info dumps and things that stall your story out can do. Make you feel like you're trying to feel like trying to get to your destination while walking on a treadmill. You're not going anywhere. You get stuck. And that happens. But let's say, so you clear out the clutter. You clear out all the debris and the rubble off the road so that people don't have to take a detour and get off the beaten path and get out of your story. And you actually add and you keep your pacing if your story is fast paced. Now, if you're a quiet writer and you can satisfy your reader with a quiet, slower paced story, go for it. But just be careful. But if you are, if it's fast paced, if it's a mystery, or it's a fantasy with fast-paced scenes. How do these scenes affect your characters? Keep the reader going. You will have a few little red lights where you're going to have to describe your world or describe what happened in the mystery. You're going to have a few little red lights along the way. You may have a couple of twists and turns, but keep your reader's mental motor running until they get to the end of the book and make it the most memorable trip possible. Now, let me use the dining experience analogy. Say you're reading a book that's very similar. Think of it as the most memorable meal you've ever had. Okay, you go to a restaurant. You get the teaser, the opening hook, the little teaser, the sampler, the appetizer. Then you get some soup and salad. Okay, then your story has all these info dumps that may not be important. You're either getting more appetizer or somebody spilled that glass of info dump in your lap and it ruined your experience. Or the way Jay put it, he said, and I said Jay Calhoun, he said, you invite me over to your house and you give me a plate of cheese and crackers. I smell that steak on the grill, or I smell that chicken frying. You got mashed potatoes going, and your vegetables are bubbling up nice and easy, and you got some sweet tea over there. Ooh, making myself hungry just talking about the food. And all you're getting is crackers, cheese and crackers. You get a second plate, and you smell the food just as it's done. Then you get a third plate of cheese and crackers, or you give me a third plate of cheese and crackers. You know what I do? I'd toss that cheese and crackers on the floor. And I'd say, okay, if I'm not going to get the real food, I'm gone. And I will, or either I will toss the cheese and crackers on the floor because I'm not getting the fried chicken that you waving in front of me, dangling at me, or I'm going to just simply leave it there and I'm going to get up and walk out the door. And that's what people are going to do with your book if you slow the pacing down too much and bore your reader. And I'm not talking just to you. I'm saying this as a reminder to myself. Because you know what? I have to remember these things too. Am I boring the reader? Am I giving the reader just cheese and crackers when they want the real meat? Am I dumping that glass of info? Am I spilling that glass of info dump in their lap? Or am I making things magically appear? Am I making am I refilling their glass and they don't even notice it's me? Am I taking away their dirty dishes? Am I bringing them their dessert or another helping of something else? Or are they going to the buffet and finding more delicious things for seconds, finding more delicious things to try? Those are things that you have to consider to make your story memorable for the reader. You want your book to be unputdownable. You want your book to be unforgettable. Because I've read stories. I'll give you, I'm not just reading stories. I'll give you a prime good example of how this happened. Okay. I got Downton Abbey audio described. If you like Downton Abbey, you watch the show and those characters, the way the writers wrote that, those characters get stuck in your head. And they will be stuck. I've even dreamed about these characters. I was so wrapped up in it. They would not leave me alone. And you want I'm not saying it has to be perfect because there's no such thing. There's no perfect book out there. There's nothing original under the sun. But God gives you a message and there's only a certain way you can tell it. Give me the words. With the Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur podcast, and even I've been reading in John 15, verse 5, where Jesus says, I am the vine, you are the branches. If you abide in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. And I'm paraphrasing. I could actually go and hold on. Let me actually look this up so that I am reading it. Oops, hold on. So that I am reading it accurately. Because I want to make sure that you and I both are getting what we need from this. Okay, oops, hold on. Hold on, I gotta make sure I get okay. Let me turn this. It'll take me a minute. But anyway, the point is the Lord, oh my God. Okay, so we all have a message to share, and it's the same message. God is like the source. Where am I going with this, y'all? I'm really having a bit of a hard time. Let me search for this here. Okay, let's see. Okay, let's see. Okay, it says, I am the vine, ye are the branches. He that abideth in me, and I in him, the same bringeth forth much fruit. But without me, ye can do nothing. So, Lord, where was I going with this? So, we all have a message to share. God gives us the message, and it's